All right, good afternoon, ladies and gents. My name is Michael Parr. Coming back to you from Central Michigan today. I had the opportunity on October the 7th to harvest a doe with my bow on public land. Super awesome hunt. I made the deal with myself after a bunch of mistakes last year and not killing a deer with my bow last year that this year, if I had the chance, I was going to shoot some does on public land if they presented the right opportunity. So, October the 7th, we have a cold front coming in. Temperatures are dropping that night and they're staying super cold to the next morning. And I take back off into this spot. This spot is a great early season bedding area, and that's the reason I'm back in here. Is you have to be very cautious, but I've done it the last couple of years. You can put yourself in the dead middle of these deer when they're bedded. The grass is a lot of times up to your head. It can be tough shooting, but when you get yourself elevated, it can be a really fun sit. So I get back in there. I eased myself back in. I left about 5.5, 6 hours before it was dark and headed back in. And then the last probably 100 yards, I would say, took me about an hour to get back into. That's how you have to be slow and cautious. You can walk right past deer if you're good about it, but if you're making a bunch of noise, you will bump deer and they will hunker down and stay tight until you are right on top of them. And so I've just kind of learned over the years in this spot, you cannot make noise getting in. You got to be stealthy. I clip my bow onto the rope, and sure enough, I hear a little commotion. Look to my right, there's a doe standing at 30 yards in the marsh, and she takes a couple bounds, turns around, looks at me, and then just walks off. Not spooked, definitely bumped, but not spooked. Right as she disappears, I hear something left. I turn and look just to see antlers rise above the grass. Can't see anything else. All I see is antlers. He's not a big buck. He's a little year and a half old 6-point, but still awesome. And he's at 15 yards. This deer starts making his way right toward that doe, and he walks past me at 6 yards. And I am struggling. I got my face pressed against the tree, stretching out as hard as I can, trying to get to the camera. Just can't quite get to it. He gets past me. I let him go for about 10 or 15 minutes, and I make my way up the tree. I get halfway up, and sure enough, he's still standing there at 30 yards next to an automotive, just taking his time with nowhere to be and no hurry to get out of there. So he finally eases his way off. I stand on about halfway up my tree for probably 5 minutes. He eases off, and I get up and set up. Alrighty, I am finally set up. That was a struggle for sure. Holy cow. It is 5:30. I left my truck at like 3:15. I am going to, since there was a little bit of commotion in here, I am going to let a couple grunts out. Just light little soft grunts. And just see what happens. So, let's rock and roll. Around 6 o'clock, I finally see a deer off to my left, get camera on it, grab binos, and it's a doe. And then another one comes in, and then another one comes in. So there's a handful of really nice, big, mature does standing out in there. They ease their way around. I thought they were coming my way, and then they turn around and ease off. No big deal, just some does. I know my confidence is high that if a good buck's in there and he gets up on his feet, he's going to come to this community scrape first. It had rained all morning, and it's just what they do. They need to get in, and they need to assert their dominance on that scrape. About 10 more minutes goes by in the same opening that those does are in. I catch a quick little glimpse of a tail flicker. I put binos up, assuming it's the doe still, and it's not. I see some antlers. Another little 5 or 6 point. Didn't get great footage of this guy, but he was in there, and he kind of started easing off towards the does. All of a sudden, here they all come. They all take off sprinting back past, and couldn't figure out what was going on. I had two options in my head: coyote or mature buck pushing them around. Neither one of them. It was actually a domestic dog. Not what you want to see when you're out on public land, but it is what it is. It's part of it. This dog pushes the deer out and around. They all scatter. One of these does takes off and comes right past me at about 40 yards and goes into a thicket. I don't think too awful much of it. I'm not shooting 40 yards at a doe. I really would like her right up close and personal if I can, 20 or less, maybe 25 if the situation's right. All of a sudden, here she is. 5 minutes later, she's stepping back out. She makes a turn and she heads straight for me. She's right here. She's right here. Deer right here. So as you can see, shot not good. I knew it as soon as I pulled the trigger. My limbs open on my bow. I'm straight down trying to avoid my tree stand in the shot. She is so close to me. When my limbs open on my bow, they smack me right on the top part of the knee, and I knew immediately that arrow was not going where I wanted it to. Not much you can do about it at that point besides sit down, say a little prayer. Hopefully you hit something vital and she doesn't make it very far. I probably wait about 45 minutes until dark, and then I ease down, check out my arrow, and surprisingly, there is a ton of blood, and it looks good. So I thought by the angle there's a chance I got in the chest cavity and hit one lung. That's exactly what the blood showed me, and I was super excited about it. I decided at that point I would track her for about 75 yards to the last place I saw her. If I was losing blood, or if I thought there was any chance I was going to bump her, I would back out. I got to that 75-yard mark. Blood was still absolutely amazing, and I decided to push on a little bit farther. I come to a point, she wraps around a bush, and she's actually J-hooking back towards me. And she comes around this bush and stops for a minute, and at that point, I bump a deer. Now, I don't know for sure if it was her or not. The next day, knowing what I know now, I don't think it was. There wasn't a bed down in there. There was a spot where she had stopped and stood in that direction, but I really don't think that was her. That spot doesn't look like she had stood there that long, because at that point she would have had to been there for over an hour. So I decided at that point to back out for the night, and I'll go back in the next day. So after an awesome sit the next morning, totaling 10 deer, 5 bucks, 5 does, I decided it was time to get down and see if we can continue this track and find this deer. I was so happy how this turned out. I tracked her about another 75 yards, totaling about 150 yards traveled after the shot, and couldn't be more thankful I found her laying there cold and stiff. I never want a deer to suffer, and so to know that she had been dead for a long amount of time makes everything in my heart definitely a little bit easier. This isn't the situation you want to be in, but thank goodness I had switched over to shooting large mechanical broadheads, because that's absolutely what killed this deer. Both mechanical and fixed blades have their place in the whitetail world, but in this exact situation, I firmly believe that that big mechanical is the only thing that killed that deer. Now that we have her, the work begins. I am buried so far back on public land, there is no way I'm taking the time to drag this deer out. It would be absolutely miserable. I give my good buddy a call, he heads on over, and we head back in to get this deer quartered and out. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video. If you have any guesses onto what vitals that arrow hit and the reason for that deer to expire within 150 yards of the stand, I would love to hear them. I had all of my guesses watching that footage back over and over and over, and I was completely wrong. So if you have some guesses, go ahead and leave them, and I will give some answers here in the next couple days.